Well, without further ado, welcome to the stage, the grid.
Yay! Thank you very much, Eleanor. Pleasure to be here. So this is the first public appearance ever of the grid. Maybe you're going to see this name more in the future, who knows? This is a new pitch we're coming out with, which is measure, track, and bring adoption to your blockchain ecosystem. Well, why is that important? Well, how the fuck are people meant to use applications within ecosystems if they can't find or understand what they are? I know I can see price go up or price go down or someone's transacting it, but what the fuck is it, huh? So that is where, in the context of this discussion, contextual data answers these questions. What is it? Can I trust it? And where is it? Data on assets, products, and companies are a core part of every user workflow in crypto, and that's why this problem is important. But this problem is not new. Your parents had the yellow pages, and in crypto there's lots of yellow pages, but the problem is the data isn't up to date. That is because there's so many places that need data on what are all the crypto assets. All of them are struggling to do it, and almost every single logo that you've seen here has invested at least probably $50,000, if not more, to actually collect and store data on different blockchain projects. I got off to a really exciting start, and now I'm like, huh. But the problem isn't only that the data platforms need to actually have data on all the crypto assets, but the crypto assets want to keep their data up to date across the entire ecosystem. And I'm not sure who here is a blockchain project and has interacted with token lists, as a crude example. Anyone here, token lists? Right, well, token lists power everything that all of you guys use, and they're like this really weird underground part of GitHub in the crypto ecosystem that power all of the dexes. And then you have this, what happens is the marketing person of the crypto project is like this. Where do we go? What do we do? Which forms do we need to fill out? Etc., etc. And so there are these big questions that are posed by these ecosystems that actually are quite fundamental to the blockchain ecosystem, but yet no one really seems to care about them. So moving forward, we really believe at the grid that ecosystems that enable their data platforms, thus the users that use those data platforms with high quality data, will win in the next bull run, because we all know crypto is an ecosystem game. So that is what the grid is presenting. Oh, that didn't animate. Is the fact that blockchain projects can write once and their data can be read everywhere across all of the data platforms that exist within the ecosystem. We stand for accurate data that's up to date and timely against a common schema that is going to be governed by the participants of this ecosystem. And that's where the grid is, right in the middle. But what is this data? I'm going to go through this quickly, but it's profile data, it's product data, it's token data, and it is company and regulatory data. Right now, almost every single crypto data platform that you use has profile data, but they don't spread it out and actually have a deeply interlinked or knowledge graph of the ecosystem. And that in itself is the problem, and that's why we're bringing a knowledge graph to this ecosystem. But how do we have that data? Well, it's four things. We identify the project, we intake data on the project using LLMs and all the AI stuff, right? And then we want to check that with humans, which is more expensive and less scalable, for sure. But once you do it right, then you have a training data set that you can train against, and there is no right data set in this ecosystem today. We also want to pin all of this data in our database every 24 hours to a blockchain to show that we haven't tampered with it. So that's pinning a hash of it, not the entire data set, because putting off-chain data on on-chain data is going to be very expensive, so we want to not do So yeah, this is the alpha part of the presentation. We actually have an MVP now, which is great. I'm not going to say which ecosystem it's on, but you can scan that QR code and follow along for the journey as we bring insights to an ecosystem that is just starting. And very excited for it, because when I first applied for OtterTank, we didn't have an MVP. Now we do. And what was great was that we actually grew the Twitter account from this MVP to 143 followers from one tweet and got 5K impressions. And so we're going to do this for a month. We're going to time box this experiment. Going to do it with someone in this room, very excited. And then we're just going to full YOLO and see what happens. Since launching this, we've had interest in people from Solana, and other ecosystems that are all interested in us doing it for them. Yay. Read this slide while I answer questions. Thank you. Yay, more followers on Twitter. I am a simple man.
Thank you. Well, that was a great presentation. You always kick ass with the presentation, so I always appreciate that as a listener. So I think that was a fantastic pitch. I think you cheated a little bit because I had like no information to go by beforehand. So there was no token distribution, or there's nothing for me to criticize. So I suppose I just have to acknowledge all that I don't see in this scenario. So
I did miss that it's supposed to be a DAO part, but
yeah, no, I'm getting there. Don't worry. So it reminds me a little bit of your last company, which I think was fantastic as well. So I think it's great that you're going in that direction again. And I can also really, really relate to this problem a lot. So as a cryptocurrency researcher, as a fundamental analyst, like half of my time is taken up by going through these kind of numbers and figures, and that so much of it is fake, or so much of it is spoof. Like, okay, TPS numbers, just as one example. Like, okay, what do you count as part of your TPS? Do you include all transactions that are confirmed? Do you include failed transactions? Do you include consensus messaging? So there's like a lot of gray area. And I think the same goes for like usage numbers. And even for me, who's like a full-time blockchain researcher, I still get fooled all the time. Recently, Solana stablecoin figures just went through the roof. And myself included, and most people were like, yes, wow, this is amazing. Stablecoin volume has exceeded ETH on Solana. Now, a couple of days later, it turns out this was actually just one DEX with one user who was for some reason counting all of the order book that was actually not finalized. So it's like all he had to do was put it on the order book. Well, that shouldn't be counted towards stablecoin volume, but yet it was on all of the metrics, on Masari, on Token Terminal, on all these explorers, and everyone just ran with the news and it ended up not being true. So this is where I think this is a fantastic use case. But I mentioned Masari and Token Terminal because it strikes me as you probably have a similar business model to that, and you're waiting for it. Masari and Token Terminal are not blockchain projects, they don't have a token, so why are you pitching here? So go ahead.
So I think firstly, Masari and Token Terminal would be clients of the grid, so they would actually be they would buy data from us and show it inside their platform. The second thing is neither of those platforms attest to their trust. So we've spoken about JobStash with the attestations of stuff, right? Those companies just take off-chain data and they're just showing that data directly. The thing is with the grid is we want to be very public and we want to be almost owned by our ecosystem, and that is where we could pretend to be a government and can go around to everyone with the ecosystem and say, hey, would you like to vote on the ballot of our structure of our data set? The answer is going to be no. So that's where with a DAO very much fits that ideals of how we can put stuff on chain, how we can use a lot of the DAO tooling that already exists, because we don't want to be like a Masari where we're saying the data and the ecosystem looks like this. We want to say to the ecosystem, we think it looks like this, but give us feedback so we can improve the structure of our data set. Because that's how I believe, and I think that's what we believe with Jordan, is that's how the future of governance and standards will evolve over the next decade or
Well
two.
said, well said. So, yeah, and there's a problem with Masari, for instance. I mean, Masari is great, they provide great data, but you have to keep in mind that's paid content. You only get listed on the site if you pay Masari a lot of money. And there's going to be obvious biases that introduces. So creating a kind of DAO structure around this, which would then govern what experts are doing the vetting and evaluation of these metrics, that actually makes a lot of sense. Awesome.
The ecosystem can really fuck us over if we do it wrong.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, reward and punishment, all with a bow around it, with tokens and incentives.
But that's also exactly why we don't start as a DAO, is because we've got a lot of testing and iteration before we even get there, before we can really go to that
Very
point.
interesting.
Yeah.
Right, I'll pass it on to one of the other Otters.
Okay. Yeah, very good presentation, as usual. Very, very effective. Very good. Great pitch. One of the best pitches today so far.
Thank you.
Very good. I think on one side of, let's say, your marketplace or your problem, maybe there's a need, let's say, like as a researcher, cyber capital. On the other side, like I don't really see like a huge problem being solved on the protocol side. Like in my days at Aave, or just in general DeFi, like these aren't like, these are small things that like the marketing person will just figure out and distribute like on token list or to whoever needs to know. So I don't know if people want to like put it into a centralized database. That's very against the ethos of DeFi. Not to say that there's not a market for researchers, but I think on the other side, I see a lot of maybe potential issues on how do you ensure accuracy. Like you still have the same problems, like Justin was saying, that the people that are interested in giving you the data, they're giving you the data for a reason, right? To fluff their numbers, essentially. So I see like, there's like almost like a slight mismatch somewhere there for me, I think. And another thing is, I think we talked about this before, around moats. Like, with respect, it's at the moment it's like a glorified, let's say, scraper in a way.
100%.
Yeah. So like once you pass that stage, right? What's going to stop other people from also scraping the same sort of things?
Yeah, that's fair. I think on the first point, it really is about incentive design, which is something that truth be told, we still have a lot of work to do. I think the core premise that we're going with right now is that a blockchain project needs distribution. They just need it, because without that, no one's going to buy their token and their numbers will not go up and to the right, or to the right and up. So that is where we can be a channel for them, and we can even potentially build like entire workflows around the marketing teams next to the legal teams, where stuff gets approved before it gets made public, which is something that actually a blockchain project said to me. Like that was Anchor, like quite a large project where she was like, "Wow, so great, I'd love that." And then on the second thing around scraping, we really see it whereas you get this beautiful network effect over time, where the more places, the more data platforms that consume the data, the higher the incentive is for a blockchain project to provide data, which improves the quality of the data set, so more people consume, and then you get this nice flywheel. For someone to come and do that, they could have the data, but do they then have and own the relationships with the blockchain data platforms and the blockchain projects? Because that's going to be very expensive to replicate. It's also why market timing is super important and why we need to go like now. Speed.
All right, cool. Fucking good start of your presentation, by the way. I really like that. I can also just acknowledge the problem here. I'm from the traditional finance world. We are managing a lot of ETFs, for example. And we are, let's say, dealing with Bloomberg, FactSet, companies like that, reputable names, but yeah, I know, they are fucking bad at data, good quality data. So I see the problem, that's why I like it. I was just wondering, are you also focusing on financial data? Is Bit Network, for example, is that a competitor of yours?
Bit Network, I don't know. I need to Google that.
Okay.
But the simple way that I explain it is I don't give a shit about quantitative data. I care about qualitative data. Now, because quantitative data, there's on-chain data and there's pricing data, and which are commoditized in the space at the moment. And with those two combined, I think in crypto you can make financial valuation, all of the fancy stuff that you learn at business school that I never touched ever, never been to a lesson. Whereas all the stuff around what is it, that's the stuff that we want to do. And I think for the case of VanEck, things like asset classifications on how you make things like indexes, there are lots of, we're doing a lot of research right now where the classification in this ecosystem it's wild. There's not, like, the standards that are out there right now, truth be told, I don't think fit the bill for the next decade or two. So, but Bloomberg and stuff, they want to show data because clients like you are asking them, and they don't have anywhere to buy in right now. So that's where our goal is to stand there with a nice face, don't say fuck, and be like, hi guys.
Hey, and I cheated a little bit as well. I looked you up on LinkedIn. I saw you successfully sold a business already, a data business.
No comment.
Okay. I know the name of the company that you sold it to because I'm getting emails, I believe, every single day in my inbox. So you probably did something good. What would you say is your most important lesson learned from that business that you can use for this data project too?
I
You
actually
were not prepared for this question.
No, I actually really want to say no comment. But businesses don't give a fuck about blockchain. They just want to save money. Blockchain can help them save money, but they don't see it. But it's coming. That's the TLDR.
So I really like this so far, but I'm really short on details. So okay, there's going to be a DAO that vets experts, which then create. How do you monetize this? Like, where is the money coming from?
Okay, there's two ways of looking at this. One, revenue. Bloomberg, they want the data, they got to pay for it. Great. That's one way, which is like B2B SaaS.
So they would pay the DAO.
They would, yeah, correct. To consume because the data is not completely public,
Yeah.
right? It exists within a database that's off-chain. You want access to it, you get out your wallet.
Understood.
Unless you're a public good, then you might get it for free. It's a long conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The second thing is, which we haven't done really explained very well ever actually, so I'm looking for feedback from the community, is the fact that if every crypto, imagine a story where every single blockchain project has a profile on the grid, they claim data, and every single data platform actually consumes data from the grid. If we introduce some form of token as a DAO so everyone governs it, there's got to be value in that network because everyone's using us, and crypto is how you make monetary incentives out of a network. I just don't know how that looks like right now.
You need a form of governance in order for this to be decentralized. But I think the challenge will be in like, well, how do you pay for that decentralization? Because decentralization is expensive, which is why I criticize some of the previous projects. Like, if you don't need blockchain, don't use a blockchain. But I think this is in particular is a case where I could see blockchain being useful just around the organization of this to kind of weed out some of the corruption and bias problems we've seen time and time again in similar services.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the original premises for the grid is imagine if there was a global registry of all on-chain protocols and products and everything like that. You want that to be governed by the ecosystem, like, logically. Because if it's not, like, what the fuck is it? That's like corporate capture, and we're back at square one again, and Web3 is fucked. So that's one of my biggest motivations for doing this, because I don't trust anybody.
One more question on data quality. So you said we'll be doing it better than others.
Yes.
There will also be a human element to it, which I think I like. But the Bloombergs and the FactSets are also doing that. So why are you gonna do that better then? And how?
There's this new lovely thing called LLMs that I think most other technologies, you know this, right? This is Neek, we like Neek. All other data companies like FactSet, Bloomberg, and all of these guys, right? They're having to like jimmy all this new technology into their existing stack, whereas we can actually take like a complete like clean approach to how we do it. And I think another big thing that we want to also build is actually by having the provenance over the data. So we actually want to store all the raw data from every single place where we get. So if you're like Aave.com, we will take the full copy of Aave.com every 24 hours. And then we store that. So if you ever argue with me as the grid in the future of, hey, that's inaccurate, we can be like, well, sure, but here's the receipt where you can see that on this time they said that. So those two things combined will kind of open up this treasure trove where we have like very high quality data set, provenance, and we can also then run a lot of machine learning and a lot of AI over this entire thing to not necessarily completely remove the humans. That's not the idea. I hate companies that say they're only going to use AI, but rather say, okay, how can we use AI and all of the other technology to augment the humans that ultimately are on our payroll to make sure that the data is high quality because we're committing that this is correct.
Last question or comment. So imagine sometime in the future you have a good data set, it's open, right? Like you have it available. Like I think a data set like that's been cleaned and nice, like should be a public good. And I'm sure someone's going to take it and it's going to put it as a public good. I don't think. I have questions on the value attached to those relationships around having that clean data. Because I think once the data is like free, like it wants to be free and open. Yeah, so just general thoughts.
I think the simplest answer I have to that is anyone can spend €1 million today collecting a data set today, and then there's a copy, there's a CSV, it's on the internet, it's accessible. The problem is tomorrow it's out of date. So from our perspective, we don't actually mind if the data from yesterday is online, because businesses who are the ones that are going to pay for access to the data, they need the updated data. So from that perspective, like you can imagine us like a little bunny rabbit, and one of the ideas we had was like every 3 months we just like poop out like an entire like copy of the data set and just leave it for the ecosystem and just do that on a consistent basis. Bunny rabbits, who doesn't like bunny rabbits?
So now you have to integrate the bunny in your...
Yeah.
No, and I actually fully agree with that. It's, like I said, Masari and Token Terminal, I think they're great, but there's often flawed data. Well, the thing is, it's not about the data itself, it's about the interpretation of that data. That's in the examples I gave when it comes to TPS, when it comes to things like interpreting stablecoin volumes, it's all about the devil is in the details. So you can't just take the data and say, oh, this is the data set and everyone has it available to them. What you need is some sort of neutral arbiter of that data, and a DAO potentially could actually achieve that. So I think that in particular is very, very
Yeah, and we could use like Clearos, is it Clearos, the arbiter? Like, right, we could integrate with many of the stuff that's in the ecosystem right now.
Great, thank you so much. Question from the audience.
We have one at the back right there.
I think it would be amazing if you could also escape like improvement proposals from all these teams. And
That
then
you speak to David for.
And then you can create some sort of innovation graph from that and see where there's like correlations between different projects and teams and everything. I think that would be really nice.
Yeah, that is fair enough. I think I mean that completely seriously. You really should speak to David, because that's what David does. But yeah, I think we don't know in where's Doc GGen gone? Where is he? Yeah. So you also run into this problem is you have no idea where you're going to get the data from for a data point that we might have in our schema. It can be hidden.
You're incentivizing the creations of standards
Yeah.
for the other stuff. So
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Duly noted. Thank you.
Another question. Over here.
A question I have, does everyone follow us on Twitter yet? I want more followers.
First CryptoCanal.
Well, thanks for the presentation. I know the project from talking to you, and I think it's a great project. And I remember that you also wanted to provide some sort of like legal information in the data as well. My question would be, how much will you be, or do you want to be, liable or exposed to the legal aftermath of providing this kind of information?
So, Jordan, could you stand up? So this is Jordan. Jordan is a co-founder of the Grid, and he is a legal counsel. So all questions pertaining to that can go to Jordan. But the short answer, I think, really for that is look, guys, we all love crypto because it's the fucking Wild West, right? From next year in Europe, because of Mika, it's no longer going to be the Wild West. Projects are going to have to show the European Union that they're compliant if they want them to not be arrested. How deep this is going to go and how far it's going to go, we don't know. But the reality is if a project does want to be compliant, if they want to communicate their compliance, there should be a data platform that allows them to do that. So you as an end user can see whether a blockchain project is compliant. Introducing the Grid.
Wow.
Yeah, regulatory is a long conversation, but unfortunately, it's happening.
Thanks for the great presentation. I think blockchain data is really important. And I want to ask you about potential companies using this data or buying it. And we mentioned Masari and Token Terminal, but could you also think like DBank, Etherscan, like Zapper, Zerion, parties like that, utilizing this data? But then I was also wondering that all those parties, they want to build their own data set, so it would be maybe not in their incentive to use this instead.
So, outside of 1inch and Uniswap, I've spoken to every single logo on this project, on this thing, right? Everyone here already has their own data set. They're already spending money collecting their data set. They don't want to do that. It's not in their core business to add context to crypto. It's their job to serve their clients, and to do that currently, they've had to go and buy in that data. So that is where our pitch to them is really simple. Continue doing that with your maybe 10 data points across the entire ecosystem and spend, let's say, $100,000 a year doing that. Or you can buy our data for, let's say, $50,000 a year, and you get 70 data points per project. So, and then the choice is really just going to be up to them. And so they validated this problem with me on these calls where they're like, we're having to do this, and it's constantly a struggle, and the ecosystem grows so quickly, we can't keep up.
Oh, great stuff that you talk to all those parties.
I don't enjoy it because collecting data is hard, man. It's hard.
You said that there was one part, what was the DEX that you didn't speak to?
1inch and Uniswap, I haven't spoken to them.
They're here, so.
I wonder why their logo is on the thing.
Do you want to answer how, do you have a question for them now?
Token lists. I want to talk to you about token lists.
Yes. Yes, 1inch have token list.
Okay, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, it's a great thing for kind of decentralizing trust. Yeah, because it's something subjective to services like Coin Market Cap, 1inch, Uniswap. They all have this list of tokens which they consider kind of trustworthy.
Yeah, and then they have I think for the audience, you have these very obscure kind of processes that the tokens have to go through, and they have to submit information, but then you can pay like 500 USDC and maybe they speed it up for you. It's a little bit weird. It's this is one of the ways how data platforms make money at this stage.
Probably never heard about
Yeah,
this.
Dex Screener, who uses Dex Screener? Come on, you degens, put your hands up. Come on. So, for example, if you're a meme coin and you want to have your logo show up on Dex Screener, they now have a special offer, $300, and you can put it on there. So.
Yeah, I also got some advertisement. Someone is sending it to Telegram, to direct messages like, wanna be shitted on Dex tools for like few days. We know what to do.
That's how they get you.
Alright. Another question from the... Thank you.
Oh, it's James. He's been giving me the eyes all night.
I do that type of one, don't worry. So, you're talking about how all of those companies, wonderful looking back, are spending all of this money and all of this time just trying to keep up with the ecosystem. If, say, MetaMask can't keep up with the ecosystem, how are you going to manage to keep up with the ecosystem? You're going to be collecting more data points and producing higher quality data.
So this really is the big challenge, and this is really what the grid has to get right, and it's also what makes this incredibly painful and just like, ugh. Because it is a big thing that we're saying, and I think some people say to Jordan and I, where you're like, yeah, you fucking nuts, like you're underestimating what's going on. I'm like, yeah, I'm not underestimating this. This is also why this is a big company. This is exactly why this is something that is VC backable and that is going to be big, that's going to have an influence over the ecosystem that you have to get right. Because if you're going to do, you either do something like this properly or you don't even try. So it's also one of the reasons from a technical perspective that we want to store all the source data from everywhere where we get things from. Is one of the big challenges is Justin, for example, he calls something a DEX, but then the big company or MetaMask, they now say, oh, we want to call it a decentralized exchange. That's a really shit example, but the problem is in these big data sets, if you change one thing, you have to go back and recollect everything. And that is one of the most expensive things in data companies that you can do, is make a change, but sometimes you just gotta do it. And so that's why with us, we store all that raw data set. So if we need to rerun or we need to change something, we can rerun that over the entire data set in a semi-automated way, as automated as possible. So it's really this first principles approach that I don't think a large company like Bloomberg or something like that, they might think of it, but can they really execute on it? I don't know, up for debate. And magic.
All right. Yeah, I was going to offer you to give your last remarks.
Okay. One more question. Good job, Jonathan. You've convinced me. But so how maybe? But so how, like going on the VC venture path, how big can this be? Like, what's an example of? To me, this looks like a SaaS product, potentially. I mean, you have the DAO and stuff and tokens, blah blah blah. But really, like, it's a SaaS product because you're saying like Cyber Capital, VanEck, they're gonna pay you the big bucks to get this data, right? So
I'm gonna just answer out my arse here, right? Like a traditional SaaS multiple is what, like a 10x, right? So to reach, let's say, $500 million valuation at a 10x value like multiplier, I need to make 50 million in revenue. Can I sell 50 million worth of data subscriptions if, for example, Bloomberg needs this data because they're like shitting themselves? A subscription to Bloomberg, I would say, is maybe like $2 million a year, for example, from this data. So I would say, yes, we can reach $500 million. The other way of looking at it, and whatever happens after that anyone who says anything else is bullshitting anyway. The other side is, if you look at it from how much money we can save the ecosystem, let's say there are, I don't know, because this is also the thing, the grid is, right now in this room, I'm pitching it only for blockchain. The reality is this can work for software products, it can work for restaurants, it can work, there's metadata is everywhere if you think of this problem that I just described through Google Maps. So from that perspective, if there are, I don't know what, like, let's say there are 1 million companies on the planet, and then we save each company, let's say, $100 a year in terms of compliance costs, because we can do identity and distribution of data costs and stuff like that. Very quickly, you can start to go into larger numbers in terms of revenue. But that's why the token part is important, is imagine if we could do all of this stuff where we can give everything away for free, because then we get that network effect, and we capture the networks through other incentives like tokens, the DAO, That's the answer I'm going to give. It's maybe not. And yeah, I can give you. I can get
so
you.
Just a quick one. So you're trying to be like the Bloomberg, or you're trying to be like a regulatory, like tool, like what's the goal here?
You may do
Like, I think.
right
No.
Single source of truth.
Yeah, it's like the way that we used to describe it was how can we provide a sufficiently decentralized global knowledge graph of businesses that operate on chain, right? And that's really like maybe to make that simpler is like, if you have all these businesses on the planet, how can we like wrap them in the grid to make them work in a blockchain universe? Because the reality is businesses need to use blockchain, and to do that there needs to be high quality metadata, and so that's then us.
Yeah, I will also say I would recommend not leaving the crypto space. It's just because I think there's a big gap in knowledge right now. Like
Yeah.
as a researcher, like we have subscriptions to Token Terminal, to Masari, and all these sort of things to get data in, to get like chain analysis, to get all these information in, but it's severely lacking. In my view, the interpretation of how that data is interpreted, like we still have to interpret that data. We still have to go, okay, well, how is this TPS number calculated, or how is this volume number calculated? So I could 100% see myself becoming a customer of a service like this, and I just think that is fantastic.
Well, that's the beauty. Can I just say one thing? That's also the beauty of it, is you could be a client of us and you might never even know it because you'll never pay us money because it will just show up in all the platforms that you use. And so that's also the real magic of the grid, is we can service potentially 100% of the ecosystem, and people, end users in this room, might not ever know we exist.
But I think that opportunity only really exists for crypto, because it's not like you're going to interpret the housing data better than Google might be able to today, right? So you have that opportunity in crypto today because that knowledge gap exists that you're able to fill. And that I think is really interesting.
That's fair.
On that note,
On that note.
because we still have one startup, guys. I know you're all very excited about JJ, but please give us your final grade, your overall final grade, and your final comments.
And we can get you term sheets too. Come on, great deal, great deal.
Aaron, go first.
Okay, yay!
Yeah, you're happy?
Yes, 7's my lucky number.
All right, perfect. Look, I think, like I said, I know how big the issue is, so it's a good opportunity. But like you said yourself, it will be hard. It's not easy.
Sure, yeah.
And I agree with Justin. I think you should stick with crypto for now.
Yeah.
You already mentioned our indices, so let's talk afterwards. That can be very interesting. So yeah, good job.
Thank you.
I give an 8.
Yay.
Originally, I was going to give a very much lower, but you convinced me. Yeah, it sounds like we can talk after this, but yeah, it sounds good. I have a clear understanding of actually the problem you're tackling.
I think this is fantastic as well, and as a fundamental analyst, I have a need for this. I could literally see us paying for this service if you're able to provide a better interpretation of that data. There lies the challenge. Will you, through a DAO, that's where the incentivization comes in, will you, through a DAO, be able to collect a group of people that will be able to do this, sparse this data better than, say, Masari or Token Terminal or any of these other services, or Bloomberg for that matter, probably can do it better than Bloomberg. But and I think that is really, really interesting. So for that reason, I'm giving a 7.
Yay!
So I would have given a higher score, but I don't know all the other details, so I can't in good conscience. So yeah, well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.